This video is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Keep watching for more information and a special offer. Regardless of whether or not you feel it was justified, you have to admit that Donald Trump has made history by becoming the first US president ever to face a second impeachment trial, which is not at all relevant to this channel, except that it does raise an interesting question. How could a German chancellor be removed from office? Well, the German political system is very different from the American. In fact, the American president actually has two roles. He's head of state and head of government. The German chancellor is head of government only. The head of state is the president. But let's focus on the chancellor. In a parliamentary democracy, the head of government is directly responsible to the legislative body, the parliament, which in Germany is the Bundestag. The German chancellor is usually, not always, but usually a member of the Bundestag itself, and the same goes for members of the cabinet. That's unthinkable in the US. The government and the legislature are strictly separated so that they can keep a check on each other. The impeachment process is one of the famous checks and balances in that system. In a parliamentary system, though, the government must have the support of the legislature to be able to do anything at all. And if the chancellor, as head of government, loses the support of the Bundestag, they can be removed from office. At the beginning of every parliamentary term, the Bundestag chooses a chancellor. This can be any German citizen over the age of 18, as long as there is no court order barring them from holding office. So, in theory, even I could become chancellor. In practice, before an election, the major parties each choose one of their number to head the election campaign, and it's understood that whichever party wins, their chancellor candidate is the one to be the next chancellor. Oh, and if you've been following the news recently, the CDU party conference has just chosen a new party chairman, but this is not necessarily their chancellor candidate for the election later this year. That is a different decision which will be made later. The chancellor is then voted in by the new Bundestag. The winning candidate must have the support of more than 50% of the delegates. There are procedures in place if the Bundestag fails to agree on a chancellor, but so far this has never happened. The chancellor must continue to have the support of the majority of the Bundestag. If they don't, they risk a vote of no confidence, which can happen if at least a quarter of the Bundestag gets together and agrees that the chancellor must go. A motion is then tabled calling for the removal of the chancellor and naming a replacement. This is felt to be important because during the Weimar Republic there were a couple of times when opposing parties cooperated on removing a chancellor, but having done that, couldn't agree on a replacement, and that just destabilized the whole system. So, a vote of no confidence is held, and if the motion is supported by more than half of the delegates, the chancellor is removed from office. Okay, but what if the chancellor is accused of a crime, taking bribes, for example? What's the procedure then? Interestingly, the German constitution doesn't specifically grant the chancellor immunity from prosecution, but members of the Bundestag do have immunity, and since the chancellor is nearly always a member of the Bundestag, is normally covered by this already. This immunity, though, can be waived, and there is a special committee that decides on such matters. If a member of the Bundestag is threatened with prosecution, this committee looks at the case and decides whether or not to waive immunity. If the delegate is then found guilty, the court could bar them from office, but it's safe to say that a chancellor with a criminal record would lose the support of the Bundestag. If they refused to resign, it's very likely that they would face a vote of no confidence. So far, there have been two votes of no confidence in a German chancellor. In 1972, an attempt to replace Willy Brandt failed by just 2 votes, and in 1982, Helmut Schmidt narrowly lost to be replaced by Helmut Kohl. There are elections due this year in Germany, so this might be the year that you want to keep your eye on German media from Germany, in German. But if you're not actually physically in Germany, you might find yourself locked out. Wouldn't it be great if there was a way to fool the internet into thinking that you're in Germany even when you're not? Well, there is. A safe and reliable VPN service can help you get around that problem, and if that sounds useful to you, then you can use this address or follow the link in the description and sign up to ExpressVPN. And if you sign up for a 12-month subscription, you can get the first 3 months free. This is culture. The chancellor with a vote of no confidence.